Welcome to the Baseline Bums podcast. I am your host, Rob, aka B-Ball Archives. That's what people know me on TikTok as. And I am with my co-host, AJ.
What's going on, y'all? What's up, bums?
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're going to be talking about a few things, and I'm really excited about it. We're going to be talking about some players that are underrated that we feel are not talked about enough.
You're going to like this one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're going to be talking about the recent amount of player control in the NBA and how players can kind of dictate their own future on a whim. And we're going to kind of dive into some of those details as well. And also we're going to get into some Spurs topics as well, like is Greg Popovich the greatest coach of all time? Who are some of the other greatest coaches that need to be mentioned as well? And we're going to get into some greatest Spurs moments, and I'm excited.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a great episode.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely pumped about it. Definitely, these topics are our opinions. Just keep that in mind. They're our opinions. So just know that we're coming at it from, I guess, people that influence us and things that we see through our eyes. So I hope you trolls bring it on this one.
So what he's saying is these are facts.
These are facts.
Yes, they're facts.
Cold, hard facts. Just like Coors Light you sponsor the NBA with.
Oh, yeah. All right. So first topic, we're talking about underrated players that no one ever talks about. So let's just start right there. So when you think underrated players that no one ever talks about, who are some of the guys that come to mind for you and who stands out?
The first guy that I think immediately is Stephon Marbury.
That's a good answer.
I think Stephon Marbury was the real deal. He was the dude in New York. Both on and off the court too. I don't think people talk enough about his shoe line. That was at Stephen Barry's for affordable shoes, like stylish, cool shoes, basketball shoes that were like $15-$20. Definitely cornering that part of the market. Because
I had those Starberries.
Oh, I had several Starberries.
Yeah.
The only time that San Antonio didn't have a Stephen Barry, so the only time that I got my Starberry fix was when we went to Denver to go see some family.
Oh yeah.
So I would get like 4 sneakers for like the price of like one like Jordan or whatever it is. Like they're like Starberry, and then on top of that, dude went overseas or went to China and basically became like a living legend in China.
Dude, he cooked.
Like he was going
wow.
off, and he played for the Ducks in the Chinese league, and he just went ham. I mean, I think they put a statue outside the arena because of him. Like one season, he averaged 29 points.
Yeah.
In China, I mean, obviously it's China. I get it,
right.
But you gotta think it's not Europe. It's not like Israel. It's not like it's China. So like. Right around that time when he moved to China, that's when like China really started to become like I guess more influential with the NBA.
Yeah.
And that's when the world kind of gets a little more smaller too, with the birth of more internet stuff and things of that nature. So Stephon Marbury in the NBA, let's talk about the NBA. He was a force to be reckoned with. He was, kind of like an Allen Iverson type player, but just like bigger. Like just a little more muscular, a little more raw. He was a perfect fit for the Knicks. I mean, he definitely had that like New York mentality, like get out of the way, I'm here kind of thing. And then he had that swag about him. I loved watching him play. I think part of the reason why he went to China was probably more politics than anything. I think he had like a few hiccups there towards the end.
He did.
And he also like got the logo of his shoe company tattooed on the side of his head.
He did that as well.
Not the face, like the side of your skull. Like it was like right here.
That's a bold move right there.
Bold move, Cotton.
Yeah, we'll see if it pays off for him.
Yeah, but he was a great person to watch growing up, being guard play, things like that. So
I like that.
I like Stephon Marbury as my underrated. Who you got?
That's a great answer. I love Stephon Marbury. He like you said, he's a very fun player to watch. One of the guys that always comes to mind for me when I think of underrated players that who are really good, and I don't know if he's the most underappreciated, but one of the guys that comes to mind is Mitch Richmond.
Ooh.
I literally never hear anybody talk about Mitch Richmond, and this guy from 89 to 99 never had a season scoring less than 21 a game.
Whoa.
He literally, for a full decade, cooked people and averaged over 21 a game. And when you look at scores in the 90s, I think he's either fifth or sixth.
Wow.
And it makes my jaw drop on the floor when I see I see the names of the people around him, and they all get talked about, but no one ever talks about Mitch Richmond. And so he was a straight up dog at that guard position. He reminded me a lot of like an old school like 90s D Wade.
Ooh.
where he was 6'5", 220.
Yeah,
he had
long, bouncy.
Yeah, he had that kind of strength where he could shove other guards when he was on the block a little bit and bully them. And so I feel like that was, where he saw a lot of his success, and he was able to really, really dominate a lot. And I don't think it gets talked about enough because he got injured, and unfortunately his only championship occurred when he was on the Lakers team, and I think it was 02, and he was like a shell of his former self. He got hurt, and he was barely even playing. He still got a ring, but like I feel like his legacy was kind of hurt due to longevity, but he was still in the league for 13 years, and 10 of those years were
him at the top level.
Yeah, absolutely bullying people. And so I just think Mitch Richmond for me is one of the most underrated players in NBA history.
It's a great answer.
Oh yeah, I loved watching his highlights. I never really got to see him play in his heyday too much. A little bit of some stuff in the late 90s, but he was the man in the early 90s, and we were children.
What do you think goes into like being an underrated player? Do you think it's like the market that you're in, or do you think just not enough publicity? Or I mean, like obviously Mitch Richmond, like the numbers speak for themselves. Was he just on was it Sacramento, right?
Yeah.
Was he just on a Kings team that just never got any love, or what do you think goes into that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is what you're saying is being in the small market and not really getting enough exposure to the media and not being on a winning team, and people love to say that even people on bad teams, they do well, and they're destined. There's going to be players that perform on bad teams. It's going to happen. So
the ball has to go to someone.
Right, exactly. So I feel like a lot of people almost viewed Mitch Richmond as like almost like an inevitability. Like, oh, there's going to be someone on the Kings that's going to do well. He's just the one that's standing out on this bad team.
10 years is 10 years.
Right. I never really feel like he got that true credit. And there's there are some other players who I feel like are very underrated in that same way. Another guy I feel like is very underrated is Alex English.
Ooh,
who essentially was the same guy.
That's the name that popped up in my head too.
Yeah. I mean, there in the 80s, he scored the most points for the Nuggets in that decade.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, he's just another guy that like held it down and absolutely crushed it for so long.
I'm almost positive he's the only Nugget to have his number retired.
Is he really?
I think he's the only one. There might be one other one, but he definitely has. He's the only one in mind that comes to mind for me.
It makes sense, but like you have to have there has to be some level of production that you've achieved, and then people are overlooking it to a certain degree. And why I said a guy like Alex English is because all the things that he achieved, he's still not one of the top 75 players.
Right.
He was one of the handful of guys that I looked at and was like, he should be in that top 75 conversation. If there's guys like, I mean, no disrespect to Damian Lillard, but like, he just hasn't achieved enough to be ahead of some of these guys like Alex English.
I think we become prisoners of the moment with players like Damian Lillard. Like, he's a great talent. Don't get us wrong, but we just get so caught up in those viral moments that we overlook like he hasn't really done much though. Like he's done a few things for sure. I think he won Rookie of the Year. He's been to several All-Star games, things like that. But,
he's had personal success, but it hasn't
just
translated to anything.
Nothing. I mean, now that we've got our juices flowing a little bit, I'm thinking of a handful of guys that I don't know if they're necessarily overrated, but they're just not talked about enough. I think Magic, T-Mac Magic. I think that hit when he went to the Rockets. We already knew what T-Mac was.
Yeah.
But when he went to the Magic, that was when it was like, what's this guy got? Because I mean, he was under the shadow in Toronto, and now here he is playing for the Magic, being the dude, and I mean going like just having highlight after highlight. So I don't know if he's really necessarily underrated, but it's definitely someone or the time of his career with the Magic is something we don't talk about enough, in my opinion.
Right. No, I completely agree. There was a level that he achieved that people just want to overlook because they want to sort of skip to the point where he got hurt and then it all went downhill, and it's like, whoa, you're not talking about the come up for someone like T-Mac and how when he got to the pinnacle, there was no one that could guard him.
Right.
There was absolutely no one on the planet that could contain.
Not even
Tracy
Bruce
Grady.
Bowen.
No,
in 2 minutes we couldn't do it.
Nope. That's why he scored that 13 points in 33 seconds.
Shout out to Jeff Poland for sending me that every year.
Gosh dang it. That's a tough one. That's one of the worst moments in
Yeah, I got one more for you.
All right.
Larry Johnson.
Dude, Grandmama,
man.
Grandmama.
He definitely had a lot of publicity and things like that, but I just don't know if I think he was underrated with how clutch he was. Because but I mean it's gonna be kind of controversial, but back in '99, whenever they got sent to the championship to play the Spurs, that was a very, very, very controversial call with a 4-point play, and did he flop or was his toe in line? All this other stuff. But I mean, the dude was legit. He was a great baller. He played with the Hornets for a while, then went up to the Knicks. I think we remember him for the Knicks mostly, but I mean, he made those commercials when he was with the Hornets.
Yeah.
And him and Zoe were a great duo. Just I think, they just didn't let it simmer for enough time to really put that over. And also, it was a new franchise too.
Yeah.
So I think it has a lot to do with new franchises and just kind of getting your footing, things of that nature. But Larry Johnson, I think, is also on that list of underrateds.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's a really great name drop, and a guy that sort of was that prototype for that sort of smaller big man that like I think he was almost like a poor man's Charles Barkley in a lot of ways, where and no, that's no disrespect because Charles Barkley was a legend,
but he couldn't shoot like Larry could shoot.
Yeah. He had a little bit more finesse than Charles in certain areas, but just more so from that undersized kind of battling down low and still being tough as nails.
Right.
That was what reminded me of Grandmama.
Who would think my two players are both Knick players being underrated?
Oh yeah.
I hope we're popular in New York now.
All right, so moving gears, we are going to go into a topic that I think is a little bit controversial because there has been a lot of trade requests and a lot of players are wanting out of their situations, and it begs the question: do players have too much control in this today's NBA?
I'm gonna let you go first on this one.
Okay, I love this topic. I personally think that the players having control is necessary. I think at the end of the day, they are the end product. They are what is presented out on the court, and they are the ones sacrificing their time and their bodies. So they should have the most compensation. I really agree with that. And ultimately, I think that's why we're seeing things like the NCAA players are now able to earn money off their likeness because they're realizing the players are the product and there's nothing without them.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, I completely agree that the players should have the power. But on the flip side of that coin, I feel like there is this lack of accountability nowadays. There is this sort of shirking of responsibility whenever you sign a 3, 4, 5 year contract. And if you think you're gonna change moods that quickly, or if one season later you want out, well then maybe you should realize that about yourself and kind of internalize that, and then think, maybe I'm not the guy who should sign a 3, 4, 5 year deal. Maybe I'm only a 2-year kind of guy and I want to go to the next team. So I feel like there just needs to be this level of accountability that we're not seeing, that a lot of the older generations saw and they saw the value in and really said, hey, if I stay with this organization long enough, we can build, we can create a foundation and then go from there. And then now, because we don't have that, I'm not going to say player loyalty, because I think there's still player loyalty, but they're loyal to themselves.
Right.
And so I don't think it's selfish. I just think they're trying to get that bag more often than not.
100%.
And so, when you look at it through that lens, the players are always going to look after their own needs. I just think, are they looking after their own needs, and is winning being sacrificed at that point?
That's fair.
Yeah. Long story short, I feel like, it should be players have the power, but there just needs to be a little bit more accountability. I want to see more accountability in the NBA.
I do agree with you, but I don't know if it's really the players more than the agents. I think the agents, especially with Clutch Sports, like Rich Paul and those guys, I think they have a lot to do with some of these conversations that are being had. Because, just kind of thinking from a Spurs perspective, maybe DeJounte was happy. He bought a house, he was raising his kids, he seemed like everything was, honky-dory. And then all of a sudden, we get wind after this year, after he was the dude for 1 year, and it's oh, he's not signing an extension? He wants out? What? Where did this come from?
Yeah.
We're about to make you our franchise player. You were a franchise player. And now he's out. And then you see, other Clutch Sports clients like Kyrie Irving looking at, he's Clutch Sports, right? Pretty sure he is.
Yes, I'm almost positive he's Clutch Sports, or he was at some point.
And now he's moving on and stuff like that. So, I think the players definitely have a lot to do with it. But now, because there's so much revenue in the NBA, that it's so hard to pass up those 4 or 5 year $200 million plus deals. And then once you get it, you're all right, cool. Then I'll be here for maybe another year or two, and then hopefully I get traded or something.
Right, and then if my situation doesn't work out, I can demand out.
Yeah, and then teams are more likely to do it. But then on the same token, you have situations like Russell Westbrook right now, where is he a fit with the Lakers? Maybe, I don't know. He just had such a bad year.
No, he's definitely not.
He's such a bad year, though. It's hard to really see. And then now it's if they try to trade him, they can't, because he's worth $50 million next year or some shit like that. So it's a tough position to be in. I don't think you're right. I think you're right. I don't think it's player loyalty. I think there's still loyalty in the NBA, but I think it's few and far between nowadays.
Yeah.
Which is why you see a Kevin Durant, on now his third team, probably gonna be his 14th here in a little bit. You see people jumping a lot. Kyrie is going to be on his probably fifth team, something like that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it just has to do with coming in the right situation and also the right organization at the end of the day. Because some of these organizations are just signing players. Case in point, no disrespect to Bradley Beal, but 5 years, $251.
Yeah, a classic case of player just wanting that bag. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, and now the Wizards are strapped.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and there's and he has a no trade clause.
Right.
They attach themselves to him in a very specific way where they're we don't even want to trade you.
Yeah.
And that to me is wild when he's not really a guy that's even going to put you in that conversation.
Right. He's a great complimentary piece, just like DeJounte is.
Yeah.
But when it comes I don't know if it's also social media or it's kind of going back to this is video game era. And whenever you're on a team, you get request trades, and it would happen whenever you're playing your My Player on 2K and things like that. But we have a lot more visibility now, I think, in the front office, which also warrants a lot of rumors and Rose bombs and Wendy doing this thing and just a lot of rumors going around. And I would love to see this next generation be a little more loyal and stay with one organization, but at the same time, it's hard to walk away from money off the court.
Right.
And I totally get it.
And loyalty only works to a certain degree because look at a guy like Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
What has loyalty got Damian Lillard? Not a damn thing.
Nothing.
I feel like that's why you saw him sign that 2-year.
Yeah.
$122 million for 2 years. He's making over $60 million a year.
Yeah,
this is crazy. We talk about players having the power.
Yeah.
If you have a guy like Damian Lillard in his prime, he can get $60 million a year. This is crazy. This is wild.
The NBA contracts nowadays, I think it really got blown off when the doors got blown off when Tyler Johnson signed like a 3-year, $50 million deal, and it's like, who's Tyler Johnson?
Yeah, like why are we playing these average role players this much money?
The fact that Lonnie Walker took a 1 year 6.9 or whatever is shocking to me. I expected him to come out making like 12.
Yeah, well, so I think he wanted to go to a specific team, and he was willing to kind of take a pay cut to get there.
I think Rich Paul wanted him on the Lakers.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that one bit. Yeah, but yeah, it's certainly interesting when you talk about the players and they're navigating this sort of change because just 10 plus years ago it was the teams the coaches and the owners that had the power, and they could really decide a player's fate and where they were going in free agency. And now a player can just literally tweet, "I want out," and then within a week they're out.
Yeah.
And that kind of power is wild.
It's kind of crazy to think that the European players have more stickiness within the organization than American players.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you look at Jokic, you look at Giannis, Luka. Those guys, like, they're spending their entire career in those organizations, for sure.
You'd hope so.
I don't see Mark Cuban getting rid of Luka. Jokic just signed the extension, and Giannis. I mean, that dude is Mr. Milwaukee.
Well, you just brought up the key point. It wouldn't be about Mark Cuban getting rid of Luka. It would be about Luka being frustrated about them not putting enough pieces, and then eventually leaving. Because Luka has the power.
Yeah, for sure.
He has all the power. If he instantly wants to be like, you know what, I want to be New York Luka, and all of a sudden the Knicks are live, and then the Mavericks don't know what to do.
But the thing also too is, a lot of these superstars are leaving the organization in a terrible, terrible spot.
They're blowing them up.
They're blowing them up hard, or the teams that or I mean, like even like Brooklyn Nets right now, like they're in a tough spot. Like, shout out to Sean Marks for trying to do his best job, but I mean, like they got rid of everything to get Harden, Kyrie, and KD.
Yeah,
and now, like, they're trying to get some of those assets back, and I mean, it's almost damn near impossible for them to find a home for Kyrie and KD, especially if they want to go to the Lakers.
Yeah.
Like, and the only way that happens if like the Pacers or the Spurs facilitate that trade, and I don't see the Spurs getting involved at all.
No,
like I don't see them.
We don't want any part of that
mess.
Yeah,
I mean, even if we were to like just lend a helping hand and for good faith across the NBA. I don't see the Spurs organization saying, you know what, we'll trade and we'll get some picks and we'll buy out Westbrook and call it a day. I just don't see that happening.
No, I don't see that happening either. There's just too much off court things with both of KD and Kyrie, where it's like KD, he doesn't get in trouble and he's not controversial, but at the end of the day, I just question his mental toughness.
Fair.
And sort of his ability to take criticism from people and his ability to, I guess, react to a tough moment. And he can hit clutch shots, but I think it just takes another layer of mental fortitude. And then with Kyrie, I just think there's just too many external things.
Many extras. Many extras. Too many flat Earth anti-vax things that like I just can't get behind, and it's really to a point where he's allowed that to be what people kind of see him as, and not that he has any control of that, because that's not his fault. That's what other people are putting on him. But at the end of the day, like, you signed a contract, and you need to be doing these things that are within the confines of the contract, and he's just blatantly not, and he gives up at times. Oh,
and it's like you can't rely on a max contract player, and that's behaving that way.
Well, whenever Kyrie's like, "Oh, basketball is not my love," it's like,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna spend 5 years $250 on you.
Yeah, it's like how many tens of millions of dollars am I paying you? It better be your damn life,
right?
At least during the season.
Oh, 100%.
You can have a life during the off season,
yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, as long as you're staying in shape.
Yeah, but shit.
So I mean, to kind of put a bow on all this, I do think that I think the NBA has made it too easy, and they definitely need to have some kind of regulations. They've tried, with all the contracts and your draft team being able to offer you the most money and things like that. But I mean, if someone I'm going to use San Antonio here. If someone just want to be in San Antonio, they're not going to be in San Antonio.
Right.
Like, I love San Antonio, and I'll 100,000% be on HEB commercials and do the whole thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you can put me on Taco Cabana cups. Like, I don't care. But, like, I don't see when you the opportunity for, compared from San Antonio to Atlanta, with the DeJounte thing, Atlanta just has, like, it's a hub for a bunch of things. It's a huge South city. It's the population's, I think, bigger than San Antonio.
Oh yeah, definitely bigger than San Antonio.
And then I mean, like, it's just you got to look at just kind of the off the court things. And I know it's tough to hear to tell San Antonio fans this, but it's a small market, and in order for us to find the next Tim Duncan, it's probably gonna have to be a homegrown talent.
Yeah.
Someone that went to high school in San Antonio, got drafted by San Antonio, and loves San Antonio as much as we do. Like, that's the only way that I see almost like a LeBron James type situation happening, and he plays for the home team. I hope if we get Victor, hopefully he's international loyalty enough, but
he certainly could be. Could be.
It's a different NBA, and I mean kind of going back to what we've been talking about, like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, those dudes are single team teams, and same thing with like Kobe, Timmy. Zoe, I think Zoe got traded to Miami, but then he stayed in Miami forever. Reggie Miller was with the Pacers forever. I mean, you go down the list, and those superstars never left. And, they were all losing to Michael Jordan, and they never teamed up.
Right.
Like, that. Like, think about that for a second.
Well, I mean, was that a smart move for them, or was it a bad move? At the end of the day, I think it says a lot about the character, but it also leaves a lot of questions that that could have been answered. Because what if Reggie Miller says fuck it, and he's like, I want to go to the Jazz, and then he's with it's Stockton, Reggie, and Karl Malone, and all of a sudden it's like, oh dang.
Yeah,
that's a squad.
That'd be fun. It would be interesting to see, but I don't think at the time with cap space,
right?
It would never happen.
Of course. That's super hypothetical.
Yeah,
but the point is they don't have that mentality,
right?
For sure. They didn't have the let's join the competition mentality that KD has, and that guys like Draymond Green say that it doesn't really matter, because he had comments recently that said there's no one that really gets upset when someone goes from Apple to Google, or Google to like Indeed or something like that. And it's like, well, there is something that exists. They sign non-compete clauses so that you can't just go to somewhere else and then add a bunch of benefit right away. And so I don't know. I see both sides of the argument, but players have a lot of power. Ultimately, players have a lot of power.
They have a lot of power because they are the talent, and they are the ones people are paying to go see. So I get it. It's just I like my '90s superstars without that diva mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. Back when the coaches had the power. So let's segue into our next topic, where we will be talking about coaches, and one in particular, Greg Popovich. This is a subject.
He's pretty good.
He's a pretty good coach. Is Greg Popovich the best coach of all time? And if not, who are the other guys that would you have on the coaching Mount Rushmore?
I've been thinking about this one for a while, since we talked about it originally. And one thing that I keep coming back to is Greg Popovich is a great coach, and he did the most with very little. I mean, looking back at kind of the things that we were doing in from like 2010 to 2015, like the moving the ball, putting the people in the right places, getting people paid at the same time. Like they would come be with the Spurs for a little bit and then turn around and go get a bag.
Yeah.
What's his name? Jonathan Simmons.
Yeah.
Comes to mind.
Simmons.
He was like
Aaron Baines,
same thing. Hopefully he comes back.
Yeah,
Shout out to
hopefully
Aaron
he comes
Baines. And then also, Derek White's looking good now. I mean, obviously we traded him, but then you have Kyle Anderson who went and got his bag. So I mean, I think he's really good at putting, kind of putting things together, getting the most out of your players, which is kind of go hands in hands with the coach. But one thing he really didn't have to deal with is personalities.
Yeah.
Which is why,
that's true.
In my opinion, that puts Phil Jackson just a notch above Pop in my book.
Okay.
Because Phil Jackson had to deal with the greatest talent of all time in Michael Jordan. And he had to deal with Rodman going to Vegas during the NBA Finals.
That's very true.
So, I mean, he had to deal with the Shaq and Kobe drama. He had his own drama going on in the background too. He had to deal with so many personalities, and I don't know if it was because he was the Zen master or what it was, but just the fact that he was able to get everyone on the same page the day of like the game, and like either it's one of those situations where you train your players enough to where they know walking into the stadium, like they got to turn it on, and that's like it's time to go, it's time to play, like everything else leaving at the door, like just the biggest, I don't know, the biggest, probably the biggest highlight of Shaq and Kobe's careers when Kobe gets to the lane, throws it up, and Shaq dunks it.
Yeah.
And, everyone freaks out, and it's like a great moment in Laker history. They were fighting at the time.
Yeah.
Like, they were fighting at the time of that play.
They were very open about that fighting.
And yeah, I mean, what did Shaq say shortly after that? Like, suck my ass or something like that?
Something
kiss my Kobe, kiss my ass, like something like that. So, I mean, I think Phil, and then like I said, Phil had to deal with Dennis Rodman. Like, not like Spurs, Pistons Dennis Rodman, like wedding dress wearing Dennis Rodman.
Right.
And then you also
dating Madonna, Dennis Rodman.
There was a lot of things going on, and Pop never just had to deal with a personality. I think the biggest controversy Pop's had in his career is the Kawhi thing, and I mean, like outside of that, it's been kind of hush hush for the most part. I'm sure there's been players that come and ruffle some feathers and did some things, sure, but to have it in the limelight and under a microscope like the Lakers have, he just never had to deal with it, and that's why in my opinion, Pop's a great coach for getting the most out of your talent. Phil Jackson's a great coach for managing the personalities and the talent that he had to deal with. So, if I want to put a YMCA team of just scrubs, Greg Popovich is my coach.
Yeah.
But if I have some really hardcore talent, I want Phil Jackson.
Okay. I completely respect that, and that's that totally makes sense when you brought up the fact that Greg Popovich gets the most out of his players. Like I wholeheartedly agree with your answer that there has never been a coach that has done more with less. Right. And when we say less, we don't mean that the Spurs players weren't capable or weren't like great players, but when you look at are these guys top 10 or top 20 players of all time, and the only one of them is Tim Duncan. I mean, David Robinson's close to that.
Sure.
But when you're talking about guys that Phil Jackson had, he has, three guys that are firmly cemented in everyone's top 10. And that's a completely different story altogether. So while I feel like, yes, Phil Jackson had to manage a lot of really big personalities, there's a lot of things that could have gone wrong whenever you have that high power of an offense and that much at your disposal. But it also gives you a freedom. It also I feel like it gave him the ability to be wrong every now and then, because I mean, you have Jordan, you have Kobe. That is a coach on the court. That is a player coach out there who can manage the game. And
sure.
and I feel that way about Tim Duncan to an extent, but I have to be realistic. Tim Duncan's ability to coach the game out on the court isn't anywhere near MJ or Kobe's. Mm-hmm. And so from that perspective, I feel like Phil Jackson, he not only had the big personalities, but he had the talent to kind of have an off night. He could have a situation where maybe he didn't write up the best play and he would get bailed out. So maybe we didn't see some of Phil Jackson's coaching errors or coaching mistakes because they look like great ideas.
Sure.
And so I feel like, Greg Popovich, he had more to lose because it was more on him. And so for that, I feel like Greg Popovich for me is the greatest coach of all time.
And it's honestly a coin flip. It's really a coin flip. I mean, think about this. Danny Green hasn't been the same player since he left the Spurs.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about getting the most out of your players, point to Danny Green. Everyone's pissed off at Danny Green.
Yeah, they're like, we thought you could shoot threes.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, was it he could shoot threes within the Spurs system?
Right.
Or can this guy shoot threes?
Right.
And I think, he could shoot some threes pretty well, but man, he was so effective in the Spurs system because we would get him shots in rhythm and wide open. Wide open. Yeah, so to me, it's Greg Popovich, but I mean, there's no hate if you chose Phil Jackson. I would only give you a side eye if you said Pat Riley or Red Auerbach. Yeah, so like those are the only.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Riley was great. I mean, I get it. I don't think he. I don't think he just doesn't have the hardware like Phil Jackson and Pop do. I mean, Red does, but also Red was competing in an NBA that had 8 teams in it. So, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. So, not to say that he couldn't have done it, I guess in today's era or something, but it's also just a completely different time in society too. Like when I think of like the 60s basketball or 50s basketball, I think of, people respecting authority figures.
Yes.
And yes, sir, no, sirs. Okay, how fast do you want me to run? Like, just go put your head down and do it. Where I think nowadays it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm like, hey, we're going to run ladders. Like, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to just go ahead and work on my jump shot or whatever. Like, the discipline is totally different. But I mean, they're both are great coaches. There's a lot of great coaches now. I think Steve Kerr is going to be in this conversation here in the next couple years if he continues to do what he's doing. I mean, and to think that he played for both the guys we just talked about.
Yes.
So he obviously learned something. Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, in order to become a great coach, is you have to have some give your players some slack and allow them to be themselves, but also coach around that. Because I mean, like what we were talking about in some previous episodes with Steve Kerr and Steph Curry. Like, Steph Curry would have been benched probably 9 times out of 10 if he was playing for any other coach.
Yeah. Earlier on in his career, I think that there's a chance he may not have had the freedoms he had with Mark Jackson as well as Steph Curry, because you have both of those guys who understand what it is to be a point guard and what it means to be a scoring point guard versus more traditional, and they kind of let Curry kind of be himself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
not a lot of people would do that.
But I mean, so I got Phil, you got Pop.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Oh yeah. But staying in that same vein, staying with some Spurs stuff, I want to dive into our favorite Spurs moments. Or favorite Spurs moments. Obviously, there's a lot of moments.
How much time do we have?
We got some time. It's
gonna be a 3-hour podcast moving forward.
So let's just dive in. Let me just go ahead and just ask you the question: what is your favorite Spur moment?
I think my favorite Spur moment is in 1999 when Sean made the Memorial Day miracle, because I was there.
Sean Elliott, yes. We love you.
Ninja. If you ever want to be on the podcast, Sean.
Yeah, that's crazy that you were there.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was. I remember it very vividly because I went. It was my parents, and we had an extra ticket, so we took my uncle, and the entire game. Like, if you go rewatch the game, we were playing terribly. We were playing so bad. Like, the Blazers had our number. They're out working us. They're out hustling us. And we just kept chipping away. And then I think we went on a little run in the fourth quarter to get us to the point of getting Sean the ball. And, I mean, I can recognize that play from a mile away now. It was a great play. Pop, I think, drew it up on the spot. And, we were at the point, my parents wanted to go home. They were like, hey, we're not going to come back. Let's just go beat traffic. And we're like, no, we're coming back. Look at the score. Like, we're getting closer.
Like, come on. Let's not be those people.
Yeah, and so, like, they were like, oh, well, if it doesn't get any better, we're leaving. And it's like, no, but we'll be okay. And just keep in mind, too, this is at the Alamo Dome when there's, 30,000 fans at a basketball game.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like the 18,000 anymore. So it was a pain in the ass to get out, 30,000 people. So we were out there, and I could see it. The music's playing, everyone's standing up, and Mario Elliott just makes that pass straight to Sean Elliott. He takes that dribble. He's on his toes and just nails it. That's probably the loudest I've ever heard an arena. Like, the absolute loudest I've ever heard an arena. And everyone's screaming literally at the top of their lungs. It came out in the newspaper like 2 or 3 days later that there was like several medical emergencies that happened because people were screaming so loud. Like,
people just went into cardiac arrest.
Well,
they started freaking out.
I literally think there's a story that came out shortly after that someone had a collapsed lung from screaming so loud. Like,
this is what Spurs fandom looks like. We are collapsing our lungs to yell for our team.
Especially when, and like, in all honesty, going back and watching that game, like, I've watched that game probably, a million times since that day. And just going back and watching it, we should not have won that game. We straight up stole that game. And that was the end of the Blazers, too. Because if you remember, this was back like when, obviously internet wasn't really a thing. But we also had like NBA Inside with Ahmad Rashad.
Shout out Ahmad Rashad.
And so they had behind the scenes, and the Blazers were kind of like the young up and coming like cool guys like Damon Stoudemire, Rasheed Wallace. I think at the time the Spurs were like more of the white collar type organization. Like, we're gonna come in our suits and we're gonna go put our head down and do work and then clock out. And if we need to come back on the weekend, we'll come back on the weekend. And the Blazers were more like blue collar, like, it's like street ball kind of thing. And they're just going to go out there and just kind of rely on their athleticism. And I don't know if that became bulletin board material for the Spurs or what, but I definitely remember Damon Stoudemire talking about that and just kind of like talking mess to the Spurs. And then, we come out and we're up 2-0 and they're like, what just happened? And obviously that set us up for our first championship, and the Spurs we know today. That definitely, I think that without that shot, I don't see the Spurs being the organization that they are. I think we still would have won the series and probably would have ultimately won the championship, but that kind of catapulted a lot of things, and also it made Sean Elliott like a hometown hero. It made him the announcer for the Spurs.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that dude is San Antone.
Dude, he has the Riverwalk water running through his veins.
Yeah, he does.
He literally does.
He literally does. No, that dude is. And then a few years later, when his kidney thing came out, like that gave everyone like really like heartbroken stuff. And then he retired a Spur. He was a boomerang. Like we had him, we got rid of him, came back. He just just that whole situation with him making that shot was just and also he was going through his kidney stuff during that shot. He didn't tell anybody.
That's right.
And if you look at his complexion, like you're like, oh man, like now that you say it, like you look a little yellow, man. Like it looks rough. So that was my favorite moment. Might be my favorite moment outside my wedding of my life, because it's just one of those things where like you just don't forget, and they show it every year and you get to watch it every year, and it's just one of those feelings that like kind of puts you in that nostalgia moment, because it was also on the old Spurs court. It was in the Alamo Dome. Like I said, there was like probably 30,000 plus people there. Just a great moment in Spurs history for sure.
There is absolutely no moment quite as I guess, as uplifting as when you hit a game-winning shot in that fashion.
Yeah.
When you literally think you are falling out of bounds, your toes are over the line.
Oh,
just
yeah.
barely.
Oh,
just tiptoed.
Think about this. If TikTok was a thing in 99,
yeah,
there would have been a tiptoe challenge.
Yes.
And it would be like everyone shooting from the corner on their tiptoes, because I did it 1,000 times after that.
Well, I think we just started it. Okay, everyone, TikTok. It is the tiptoe challenge. AJ is challenging you. Can you hit threes like Sean Elliott? Let's see it.
Can you take that one dribble and then on your toes nail that corner three?
Yeah, that's tough.
And if you want to throw it in too, have one of your tall buddies try to block it like Rasheed Wallace, because that also gets left out in the dust a little bit. He had to shoot over Rasheed Wallace, a fully stretched Rasheed Wallace on his toes.
That's tough.
It was not an easy shot.
That's tough.
What's your favorite Spurs moment?
I mean, when you're talking about favorite Spurs moments, obviously there's so many, but one that really comes to mind. I mean, I have some really some great memories, but I think the one that comes to mind is that first championship.
Yeah.
Whenever we won that first championship in '99, I remember just the jubilation that the city felt, because it had felt like the only team that we've ever known in San Antonio is now finally successful.
Right.
Like, it is the only organization, and there was literally cars were gridlocked, and it was a situation where like we were just like insanely elated, and we were so happy, and everyone was really focused on, hey, we have a dynasty we can be happy about.
Right.
And I think just seeing it looked like fiesta. It literally, like, seeing that happiness in the city was something that I had never ever seen before.
I think a lot of it also was like we conquered demons that year.
Yeah.
Like
and despite it being a lockout season, I know a lot of people use that to kind of discredit the championship, but I still feel like it was
everyone also had the same opportunity.
Yeah, they did.
So everyone. So if you want to criticize the '99 championship, then the bubble has an asterisk too. Let's just say that. So I mean, everyone had a chance to win it. Everyone had the same amount of games. Everyone played the same stuff. If you didn't make it to the championship, that's on you.
Yeah. Like,
lockout or not, like, you had the same opportunity. So I don't want to hear that BS.
Yeah.
So with the Spurs though, it was like we played the Timberwolves in a 5-game series in the first round. We lost the first game and then ended up winning the next 3. So we beat KG, I think his second year or so, and that's when people were like, "Oh, KG versus Tim Duncan, ooh,
yeah,
what is this?"
People are still talking about that.
And then the next round was Kobe Shaq. I think it might have been the first year of Kobe Shaq, maybe first or second year. It's fairly new, and we swept them, and it wasn't even close. And you know who was like kind of like the MVP of that series?
Yeah.
Jaren Jackson.
Dude, Jaren Jackson. Excellent name drop.
Excellent name drop. Jaren Jackson was dropping 3-pointers left and right in Staples Center. The Spurs, if you guys don't know, shut down not Staples Center, the Forum.
Yeah.
Spurs shut down the Forum and closed out a 4-0 sweep of the Lakers, and then we went to go play the Trailblazers, who were kind of like, I would say maybe the favorites, or maybe not the favorite, but they're up there.
Yeah.
And we end up sweeping them. And then we play the Knicks. And the first game of the championship, I think it was the first game, we went to that game. My parents had season tickets at the time, and it was one of those, like, you had to buy, like, the entire playoff portfolio or the tickets.
Yeah.
So like, they got their money's worth, thank God. But we were playing the Knicks, and I remember sitting at our seats, and Spike Lee walking like as far as you and I are from each other. That's how far we were, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's Spike Lee!" Like, that's Spike Lee. And, like, he clearly took a wrong turn because he's supposed to be on that side.
Yeah.
And so, it was really cool to be at that first game, and like the whole everything kind of came into one, and we got Avery a championship, we got David a championship, we got Sean a championship. And, like, those guys who've been so loyal to San Antonio for so long in the 90s just kind of paid off. It paid off David Robinson sitting out those 2 years in the Navy.
Yep.
The fact that we got one before the Jazz got one. Like, that was huge.
Yeah.
I remember Avery Johnson. God, I love it. This is like an Avery Johnson podcast at this point.
It really is. Shout out Avery
Shout out
Johnson
Avery
once
Johnson.
again.
Avery Johnson gets on the microphone and being kind of like the preacher that he is, he starts talking during the celebration. He's all in his shirt and they're wearing their jorts and stuff. And he was like, the LA Lakers win the championship. And everyone's like, no. And he's like, the Trailblazers win the championship. And he's like, no. And he's like, the Utah Jazz win the championship. And they're like, no. And he goes, we can say hell no for that one.
Oh yeah,
and everyone's cheering and stuff. And
a little bit of extra hatred.
It was definitely the get the monkey off your back, and then it kind of went right into the Lakers dynasty.
Yeah,
which was like insanely impressive. Like looking back, like those were some rough years for us, but looking back, man, that was a good team.
Yeah,
those Lakers were so good, and it was like almost damn near. I mean, it was literally impossible to stop them. I mean, with the Lakers the way they are, I mean, maybe the Kings sneak one in there, or maybe they make it interesting. But I mean, Robert Horry destroyed the Kings franchise.
Those early 2000s Kings were really good.
Yeah,
they were amazing. I loved watching that. Like one of the guys I loved on that team, obviously, like Chris Webber was really really amazing, but I loved Peja Stojakovic.
I remember you loving Peja.
Dude, I related to his game a lot. He was a much better shooter than I was, but I always tried to emulate a lot of stuff he did, and his game was so amazing to me.
Yeah, I think another top Spurs moment would be when probably when Timmy hit a 3-pointer against the Suns. That was pretty dope.
That's what I almost said, because I physically remember like how I reacted during that, and I was just like, it was one of those like you can't even help yourself but kind of like scream a little bit, because it's you almost like willed it in.
Yeah.
Just because it was his only one all year.
Right.
Like how are you just gonna step up in a huge moment, take your only 3 all year, sink it, and then boom, it's nothing.
Right.
Fist bump.
Right. I think another fun one for me is when Manu blocked James Harden.
That's a fun one.
That's a fun one.
That is a fun moment.
Because essentially that's what I mean. We knocked out the Rockets, and we should have knocked out the Rockets.
Yeah,
we should not have won that series.
On paper, we were not better than the Rockets.
No. But I mean, yeah, the Manu folklore in San Antonio is just always it's so much fun.
I mean, whenever you're doing things like swinging and stopping bats
in
midair, like I mean that could go down as an all-time great Spurs moment. Like he was literally animal control out on the court.
Oh yeah. Well, what's funny is that like everyone has a fun Manu story, but I just remember when we drafted him, and like people kind of knew who he was. I think it, kind of goes pre-internet as well. I think if Manu would have came in and TikTok and Instagram and all those things were around, I think he would have had a lot more highlights on TV that we would have seen, which we probably wouldn't have landed him. But, shout out to our scouting team at the time. But what was really great about Manu is whenever he started to like really get some traction and get some PT and, getting popular in San Antonio, he would be doing an interview with like a local TV station, and then turn around and do one with like Univision.
Yeah,
and it's like, wow, that's so cool. Like we were all really excited. Whenever my grandparents went to Argentina, they were trying to find me a Ginobili jersey, and so they're like walking around like, "Hey, we're trying to find Ginobili," and they're like, "Who?" And they're like, Ginobili, the basketball player. Yeah, they were like, oh, Ginobili! Like, oh, over there. And there's like a bunch of them over there. So, yeah, shout out to my grandparents on getting me that jersy. I still got it to this day.
That's what's up. Yeah, you've had that jersey for a long time. That's a fresh jersey.
But yeah, also I'm just insert any Tim Duncan highlight here.
So many great moments. I mean, there really is, and I feel like another one of them is one that doesn't really get talked about, and it's the most recent one, but just how we came back after losing in 2013,
for sure,
and then getting revenge on the Heat in 2014, and winning in the way we did, where the
way we did it was
right.
I mean,
it came down to the wire, just like it did the previous season, and we were like, we are not going to allow that same stuff to happen to us, and then we were able to kind of, I feel like cement that legacy that Spurs dynasty, because it was like we didn't just win a championship in the 90s and the 2000s, we're winning in the 2010s
against
well.
LeBron James and his insanely good team.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think another one that also kind of gets lost in the shuffle is the way we sent off David in 2003, and he was able to retire a two-time champion.
Yes.
He went out in the sunset. He became a part owner shortly after that. I mean, David alone, I just think about all the – I think if you grew up in San Antonio in the 90s, I think everyone has a David Robinson story.
Yes.
Almost positive everyone has some kind of David Robinson story.
The man is loved.
Just to some extent. For me, it was me meeting him and meeting his dad. That was really cool. Mm-hmm. For Mackenzie, I know she met him. Shout out to Mackenzie, she's my wife. She met him a couple of times, just at HEB or something like that. So, and then, you talk to anyone, they all had some kind of crazy interaction with David. So, I think that's what makes San Antonio just such a unique and awesome city. And that's why the Spurs should never leave San Antonio.
No, they never will. We are diehard fans, and we're going to have their backs forever. Even through this tough rebuild, we will still be loyal to our Spurs. And I think that just about does it for this episode.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think that
we covered a lot today.
Yeah, well, we covered a lot of good Spurs moments. We talked about player power and how it shapes its dynamics, and we talked about some underrated players that we absolutely love. So,
anytime I get to talk about Stephon Marbury, I am here for it.
Absolutely. Well, that was a great episode. Thanks for joining us on the Baseline Bums podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're going to be putting out podcasts pretty regularly. So. And videos on TikTok as well. So take care. Once again, I am your host, B-Ball Archives, a.k.a. Rob, and we'll see y'all next time.
Go Spurs, go.
Go Spurs, go!